A retired man was making his morning coffee when his old German shepherd began barking uncontrollably, not at the door, not at the window, but directly at him. When the man looked down, he realized the dog had sensed something he never could have seen coming. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications. It helps us bring you more true and emotional stories from the heart. The dawn crept slowly over the pines surrounding Lake Winterfall, a quiet piece of the world where time moves slower than anywhere else. Henry Walker, a retired railroad engineer, stood in his small cabin kitchen, waiting for the kettle to whistle. The scent of wet leaves from a night's rain drifted through a cracked window. Everything felt ordinary until it didn't. Max, his 12-year-old German shepherd, was pacing, not limping, not sluggish like most mornings with his aching joints. Pacing, his old tail stiff, ears pinned, eyes focused like a soldier on duty. Henry chuckled. "What's gotten into you, boy?" Then the barking erupted, sharp, rapid, frantic. Max wasn't looking outside. Max was barking at Henry. The retired man frowned and bent slightly, a hand pressing against his lower back like he had done thousands of times since leaving the railroad. Arthritis, he always thought. Just age catching up. The kettle screamed, but Max's barking was louder. "Max! Hey!" Henry's voice trembled more with concern than discipline. He crouched down fully this time. "Talk to me, buddy." Max nudged him violently, nose slamming into Henry's chest. Then he backed up, staring at Henry's torso, another bark punching the air like a warning. Henry reached down, palm against his shirt, and froze. His chest felt tight. Hot, a burning pressure crawling up his neck, like invisible fingers squeezing. His breath hitched. For a moment, he thought he saw the room tilt. Max whined, pawing at his leg now. Henry tried to stand, but the world flashed white. Pain speared through his sternum, down his left arm. He collapsed against the counter. A mug shattered beside him, coffee splashing like dark blood on the floor. Max let out a desperate howl, low, trembling, terrified. Henry gasped for air, but every breath felt like drowning. "Good Lord," he managed, voice breaking. "Max." The dog leaped beside him, pressing his head under Henry's arm, trying to lift him, support him. Anything. Henry's vision blurred, but he could still see Max's eyes. Loyal, intelligent, afraid. The retired man finally understood. Max wasn't barking at him. He had been barking for him. The old dog laid his massive body against Henry's side, trying to keep him upright. Henry clutched Max's collar, the only solid thing in a spinning world. Okay, boy," Henry breathed. I'm listening." But his strength was fading by the second. Outside, distant thunder rolled across the lake, and Henry realized he might not survive the next hour. Rain thickened outside, turning the morning gray into something darker, something threatening. Inside the cabin, Max stayed close, muscles tense beneath his aging coat, eyes reflecting both fear and determination. His heavy breathing echoed in the silence that followed Henry's collapse. Henry forced himself to inhale, though each breath came jagged, like glass scraping inside his chest. His trembling hand found Max's fur, fingers sinking into the thick coat that had been there for him every single day since the moment their lives crossed. You knew, didn't you, boy?" Henry gasped. Max pressed his head more firmly against Henry's shoulder, a soft whine leaving his throat. He nudged again, urging Henry to stay awake. The dog's instincts, sharpened by years of loyalty, recognized danger long before Henry ever would. As Henry struggled to stay conscious, memories surged to the fog of pain. 13 years earlier, Henry Walker had stood in the shelter's concrete corridor, grief clinging to his bones like a weight he couldn't shed. His wife, Mary Ann, had been gone for only 6 months. Cancer, swift and merciless, had stolen her from him faster than he'd ever imagined possible. His co-workers at the railroad urged him not to retire early. "You'll be lonely," they said. "Work will keep you moving," they insisted. But without Mary Ann, the world had lost its purpose. He signed his retirement papers and walked away from everything familiar, except the heartache. The shelter had been a last-minute detour, a place he wandered into without knowing what he was hoping to find. Rows of barking dogs, some excited, some terrified, some resigned. And then there was Max, a young German shepherd sitting completely still, watching him, not barking, not begging, just waiting, his eyes wide and golden, seemed to look straight through Henry's grief and into the man beneath the sorrow. When Henry opened the kennel gate, Max stood and took 2 steps forward, then stopped as if asking permission. In that instant, Henry felt something he hadn't felt since Marianne passed. Hope. The shelter worker smiled. That one? He's stubbornly loyal. Picks one person and never lets go. Henry knelt down, a single tear escaping his tired eyes. I could use a bit of stubborn loyalty. Max licked his hand. The deal was made. Now, inside the storm-ridden cabin, the dog who saved Henry from loneliness was trying to save his life again. Henry blinked hard, vision doubling. His breath grew shallower. Don't leave me, he whispered. Max understood that tone. The fading energy, the slipping awareness. He barked sharply, once, commanding Henry's attention. Lightning cracked outside, rattling the window panes. The world felt like it was falling apart, and Max knew he had to act before his human faded completely. The dog looked up, his gaze landing on the phone on the countertop. He limped toward it, back legs stiff and painful, but he pushed on. He reared up, jaws closing around the device with surprising precision for an old dog with worn teeth. The phone dropped next to Henry's leg. Henry's shaking fingers reached for it, but failed the first time. He tried again, slower, weaker, and managed to activate the voice command. As Siri called 911, Max stayed pressed against him, while Henry forced each word out like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The call connected. Through the haze of pain, voices filtered through. 911, what's your emergency? Henry's head slumped sideways. Max pawed at his chest, desperately keeping him alert. "Am I heart alone, Storm? Please," Henry gasped. The operator's voice sharpened with urgency. "We are sending help. Stay on the line if you can." But Henry couldn't. His head rolled back, eyelids sinking. Max barked again, furious this time. The sound shook the cabin, a battle cry against fate itself. He nudged Henry's chin, licked his cheek, anything to keep his spirit anchored to the world. Henry forced one eye open. "You saved me twice now," he whispered. "Once from grief, and now from death." Max whined, pressing his forehead to Henry's chest again. That place, his favorite place, where he could always feel Henry's heartbeat, a pulse that now stuttered and paused unpredictably, like a record stuck on a broken groove. The storm outside intensified. Wind hammered against the walls. Lightning illuminated Max's aging profile. Gray hairs, stiff limbs, a tired old soldier still refusing to surrender. Henry choked out a painful laugh. "You really are stubborn." The lights flickered overhead. Once, twice, blackout. Henry swallowed hard, fear crawling into his voice. "Stay with me, Max." But it was Max who was fighting to bring Henry back from death's door. He wasn't barking at Henry anymore. He was barking for him, fighting for him, living for him. And he wasn't done yet. Not while Henry's heart still tried, however weakly, to beat. Not while loyalty still lived. Lightning cracked against the sky, splitting the darkness like a jagged wound. Rain pummeled the cabin roof so violently it sounded like fists pounding against the wood. Every gust of wind made the old structure creak, a reminder that nature showed no mercy tonight. Inside, Max pressed his weight against Henry, bracing the retired man against the floorboards. Henry's breathing was unsteady. Each inhale a battle, each exhale surrender. His skin had grown colder, clammy, almost colorless except for the flush of strain on his cheeks. "Still here, boy," Henry whispered, though the words escaped more like air than speech. Max nudged his chin, refusing to let Henry sink into the darkness, tugging at him. He barked sharply, once, commanding attention, commanding life. He could feel it. Henry was fading. Max remembered younger days when running, jumping, and training filled his lungs with fire rather than pain. He had been Henry's shadow then, learning commands, searching woods, retrieving tools, always eager to impress the human who would save him from abandonment. Back then, Max believed he could protect Henry from anything, loneliness, strangers, even the wild. Tonight, that belief was being tested like never before. The cabin trembled again. A loud crack sounded from outside. A massive pine, weakened by wind, had fallen somewhere nearby. Too close. Max's ears pinned back. Instinct flared. Danger was tightening around them. Henry tried to shift his body, but the effort drew a groan of agony from deep inside. His hand fluttered weakly, searching for Max's fur. "Don't let me sleep," he breathed. Max licked his fingers. No sleeping. No giving up. His eyes darted to the medical supplies scattered from the fallen bag. He'd seen Henry use those pills before, on bad days. The bottle Henry struggled to open earlier still lay within reach. White plastic reflecting a dim flash of lightning. Max shuffled carefully to it, his hind legs trembling. With a soft growl of effort, he nudged the bottle closer to Henry. Henry blinked sluggishly. His chest spasmed in another surge of pain. His fingers closed around the tiny container and shook a second pill into his mouth. But the relief didn't come quick enough. His heart fought like an engine misfiring, shuddering, skipping, squeezing. Max pushed his head under Henry's arm again, giving support, giving warmth. Their hearts pressed close. Max's pounding fast with fear. Henry stuttering toward silence. "You've always been there," Henry whispered, tears shining in the corners of his eyes. "I can't leave you behind, old friend." Max didn't know what those words meant, but he understood the emotion, the sadness, the fear. He responded the only way he could, a soft whine, then a deep, determined growl at the storm raging around them. The phone screen flickered, then died completely. The blackout had finally claimed everything. No light, no heat, no contact with the world beyond the storm. Only Max stood between Henry and the end. He stared at the door, barred only by the storm's fury now. Should he stay? Should he return to the phone? Should he go find help? His instincts battled. Leaving Henry felt like betrayal, but doing nothing felt like losing him. Lightning flashed again, this time revealing Henry's stillness. Max's heart lurched. Henry's eyes were closed. No, no, no. The old dog barked, loud, urgent, terrified. He pawed at Henry's chest, licked his face, nudged his chin again and again. Henry's eyelids twitched. He forced them open, groaning. "I'm still here," he breathed, voice barely a memory. Max pressed his forehead desperately to Henry's chest, feeling for the heartbeat. There. Weak, but there. Wind howled like a warning siren outside. The roof groaned under pressure. A gust rattled the back wall, making dust fall in a tiny shower that sprinkled Henry's hair. Max looked up sharply. His body stiffened. He sensed movement, the wrong kind. The storm wasn't the only threat anymore. Animals displaced from the woods, falling debris, something or someone lurking in the dark. Max positioned himself fully in front of Henry now, wide stance, teeth bared, tail low and vigilant. He would not allow anything to reach his human. Not tonight. Not ever. Henry's voice cracked through the tension. "You're saving me again, boy." Max didn't move, didn't blink. His duty was etched in every trembling muscle. And then, distant, but real, a faint echo of sirens swallowed by thunder, but definitely there. Max let out a howl, not of fear this time, but a call, a beacon, because hope was fighting through the storm. Help was coming. But the question lingered like a knife in the air. Would they arrive before Henry's heartbeat surrendered? The store was no longer a backdrop. It was a monster unleashed. Wind clawed at the cabin, howling like a wounded animal. Rain slammed against the windows in sheets so thick that the forest outside had vanished into a wall of black water. Max remained a sentinel, his aging body pressed protectively against Henry's. His fur, once thick and powerful, now trembled under the pressure of fear and duty. Henry's breaths had grown quieter, drawn from somewhere deep and failing. His heartbeat, once steady and strong after years of labor on a railroad, was now an unpredictable stutter. Hang! "Hang on," he murmured, words barely audible. But his voice was meant for Max. The old German shepherd nudged Henry's chin again, licking a tear that slipped down the man's cheek. Henry wasn't crying from pain anymore. He was crying because he feared leaving Max alone. For years, they had been each other's salvation. Two weathered souls against the world. A retired widower and his loyal dog who had filled the void of grief with unconditional love. Max would not let death take Henry tonight. He forced himself to stand, joints screaming with arthritis. His claws clicked softly on the wooden floor as he turned toward the front door. A growl rumbled low in his chest. Something thrashed outside. Not the wind, not thunder. Branches cracking and footsteps. Heavy ones. Max's ears pinned back. He stood tall, body angled between the threat outside and the collapsed man behind him. Lightning flashed, and a shadow passed the window. Henry managed to pry his eyes open. "What is it?" Max's growl deepened. Every instinct warned him. Protect your human. Another crash slammed into the cabin, a massive tree limb falling dangerously close. The impact shook the walls. The door groaned but held. Max barked sharply, warning whatever loomed outside. This territory has a guardian. But then, a new sound pierced through the storm. Voices. Over here. This is where the call came from. Check the door. The rescue team had arrived. Max's bark changed immediately, from threat to desperate urgency. He pressed paws against the door, trying to get it open. Henry exhaled a shaky laugh through his pain. Good boy, you got them here. But hope was fragile. The storm was still in control. The rescuers pushed the door once, twice. It stayed shut, pinned by fallen debris outside. Branches jammed against the frame, one voice shouted. Max rammed his shoulder into the wood, ignoring the sharp pain that shot through his spine. He did it again, and again. Each impact drained a little more of his already dwindling strength. Inside, Henry tried to move, but agony flared like wildfire across his chest. He collapsed back down, coughing violently. A metallic taste filled his mouth, blood. "Max!" he rasped. Outside, boots stomped through mud. Men grunted as they tried to clear the blocked entrance. Inside, Max refused to stop hitting the door, his growls turning frantic. Lightning illuminated the scene for one horrifying second, Henry's lips turning blue. Max barked wildly, an alarm bell ringing through the storm. "Push harder," a rescuer called. Max stepped back just a few feet, gathering every ounce of strength left in his bones, and threw himself against the door with a final, sacrificial leap. The wood cracked, the branch scraped, the frame groaned. Then the door burst open. Cold air and rain exploded inside with the rescuers. Sir, can you hear me?" Two paramedics rushed to Henry. Their flashlights darted across his pale skin, his erratic chest movements, the trembling dog refusing to move from his side. "He's having a myocardial infarction. Severe. We need to transport him immediately," one medic shouted. Max barked once, loudly, urging them to hurry. They tried to lift Henry, but his hand shot out, grabbing Max's collar with surprising force. His voice cracked with terror. "Don't leave him." The paramedic hesitated. Protocol battled compassion. "He can't stay here," the deputy sheriff finally said, stepping forward. "If this dog hadn't alerted us, we wouldn't have found him alive." He knelt, meeting Max's frightened eyes. "He rides with us." Max leaned into the man's touch, just for a heartbeat, acknowledging the trust he needed to place in strangers. Henry was lifted onto a stretcher, his head lolled to the side, breath shallow. The storm slammed the open door, trying to pull him back inside. The rescuers fought the wind and maneuvered through mud toward the waiting ambulance. Every jolt made Henry moan softly. But when the stretcher passed over uneven ground, Max was right there, pushing, nudging, supporting, refusing to let Henry go alone. The paramedics loaded Henry into the ambulance, attaching monitors and oxygen. One medic shouted through the storm, "He's crashing, let's move." Max attempted to jump inside, but slipped, his hind legs faltering. The deputy scooped his arms under the dog, lifting gently. "I've got you, hero." Max was placed next to Henry on the ambulance floor. The doors slammed shut. The storm roared behind them as the engine revved and the sirens wailed back to life. Thunder tried to swallow the sound. Lightning tried to blind the night. Wind tried to topple everything still standing. But Max remained locked onto Henry, head resting against the man's weak chest, listening for the rhythm of life. Henry's eyes flickered open for a fleeting moment. "You stayed? Good boy." Max's ears pricked forward. His heartbeat synced with Henry's, the way it had 1,000 times before. The ambulance sped toward the hospital, but the storm had one last vengeance to unleash. The tires suddenly skidded. Floodwaters surged across the road. The ambulance lurched sideways. Metal screamed. Henry's body jerked. Max slammed into the wall, and everything went black. Metal groaned like a wounded beast as the ambulance finally jolted to a stop. Thunder rolled overhead, drowning out the frantic shouts inside. Rain hammered against the windows in relentless fury. Every flash of lightning illuminated chaos. Shattered medical supplies, a paramedic gripping their arm, and Henry's limp form strapped to the stretcher. Max lay against the back wall, where he had been thrown during the crash. Pain throbbed through his hips and hind legs, an old injury reignited with cruel force. But he didn't cry out. His first instinct was to look for Henry. Henry wasn't moving. Max dragged himself forward, claws scraping the wet metal floor. He reached Henry's hand and nudged it with his nose. The hand didn't respond, didn't twitch, didn't tighten around his fur like it always did. Henry's head hung to the side, eyes half closed, lips tinged a terrifying shade of blue. A medic pushed forward, voice shaking. "He's in V-fib. We're losing him." Max whimpered, pawing Henry's chest desperately. He laid his head against Henry's shoulder, listening for a heartbeat. There, but faint, weak, like a drum losing rhythm. The medic grabbed the defibrillator, but rainwater from the broken roof panel was dripping over the electronic equipment. "We can't shock him. Not in here, it's too dangerous." Max barked, urgency slicing through the storm's noise. He shoved against Henry's arm, licking his fingers, trying to keep his soul anchored to this world. The ambulance driver was already calling out through the shattered comms. "We need backup. We crashed at Miller Creek Crossing. Floodwaters." Static swallowed the rest. Another bright flash, and then headlights approached through the torrent. A secondary emergency vehicle slid to a halt nearby. The deputy from earlier sprinted through mud and rain, yanking open the ambulance doors. "What happened?" "No time," the medic shouted. "We need to transfer him now." They unlatched the stretcher and dragged Henry out into the storm. Mud swallowed their boots. Wind tried to rip Henry from their hands. Max hobbled after them, refusing to be separated even for a second. The deputy opened the rear of his SUV. They lifted Henry in, and Max scrambled up beside him, ignoring the pain that shot down his spine. "We're only 10 minutes out," the deputy yelled as he jumped into the driver's seat. 10 damn minutes. The paramedic knelt beside Henry, beginning chest compressions, rhythmic, forceful, desperate. 1, 2, 3, breathe. She delivered a breath. "Come on, Henry." Max watched every motion, every rise and fall of Henry's chest. He nudged, licked, whimpered, every instinct screaming. "Don't go. Stay. Live." The sirens returned, cutting through the thunder like a lifeline. "Pulse is fading," the medic warned. "He's going into full cardiac arrest." Max pressed his head against Henry's chest, heartbeat to heartbeat. A spark lit in Henry's eyes. Barely. A flicker. "Max," he whispered, breathless, fragile. Max's tail thumped, weak but filled with hope. "You saved me," Henry forced out, but then his eyes rolled back. The medic's face collapsed in panic. "We lost his pulse again." She grabbed the defibrillator paddles, powering them on, charging 200 joules. The deputy's voice roared from the front. "Hold on, Henry." The shock hit. Henry's body jerked violently. Max yelped, fear crashing through him. No response. Charging 300 joules. Another shock. Henry's body convulsed again. No heartbeat. Rain pounded the roof. Time slipped through fingers. Max's breathing hitched. The medic whispered to herself, "Please, please." She shocked Henry a third time. A long second. 2, 3, then a blip, a pulse. Weak, but real. Max barked, tail fighting to wag again. The medic exhaled, trembling. "We've got him. Go, go, go." The deputy floored the accelerator. The SUV shot forward, water splashing violently up the sides. Henry's eyes fluttered open. Barely there, barely alive. He breathed out a single sentence, soft as a prayer. "I'm not done. Max." Max responded with a low, loyal growl. He was telling Henry. "Then neither am I." The hospital lights appeared through the rain, a beacon in the storm's darkness. But survival wasn't guaranteed. Not yet. The SUV tore through the flood-slick roads, tires fighting for traction, sirens crying into the storm-saturated night. The wipers whipped rain aside with frantic speed, but visibility remained nearly zero. Lightning snapped above the tree-line, casting flashes of white across the winding mountain road. Henry lay motionless and back, his body strapped down, chest rising only when the medic forced breath into his lungs. Electrodes clung to his skin. The heart monitor's beats were scattered, unpredictable, each one a small but vital act of resistance. Max lay curled against Henry's side, his old body trembling uncontrollably. Every bump, every sharp turn sent pain rippling down his spine, but he stayed there, pressed as close as he could, guarding Henry even from death itself. The deputy stole a glance at them through the rear-view mirror. "Hang in there," he muttered. "Both of you." Another jolt of the road, and Henry's weak pulse fluttered on the screen. "Come on, Henry," the medic shouted, pushing harder on his sternum. "Stay with me. Stay with your dog." Max whined anxiously. He sniffed Henry's breath, shallow and fading. Fear tasted metallic in the air. The medic delivered a final series of compressions, and the monitor responded with a steadier beep. A heartbeat regained, still fragile, but holding. Relief washed through the medic's posture, though her brow remained pinned with fear. Max lifted his head, ears pricking. He heard something no one else noticed yet. A grinding rumble, steel and rock shifting. His hackles rose. He turned sharply toward the rear window, staring into the darkness behind them. The deputy noticed the change. "What is it, boy?" Max's growl was deep and instinctual. A landslide. The mountain slope beside the road began to collapse, chunks of earth and broken trees rushing downward like an avalanche of mud and death. "Brace yourselves," the deputy screamed. Mud slammed into the back of the SUV, shoving the vehicle forward as though a giant hand had grabbed it. The deputy fought the wheel desperately, skidding through the flooded turn. The SUV fishtailed, nearly rolling. Max planted himself over Henry, shielding his chest and stomach from the jerking movement. The deputy regained control by inches, speeding down the final straightaway. "There!" the medic cried, pointing through the windshield. Through the storm, distant but visible, stood the warm lights of the hospital. Hope, just a few hundred yards away. But Henry's heart wasn't waiting for safety. The alarms on the monitor erupted, long, uninterrupted tones. "Flatline." "No!" the medic cried out. "Not now, not when we're this close." She grabbed the defibrillator again. The ambulance crash had damaged its case, but it still powered up. She positioned the paddles with lightning-quick precision, charging clear. Henry's body convulsed violently from the shock. Max barked in terror, pawing desperately at Henry's arm. No pulse. "Again!" the medic shouted. Another shock. This time, Henry gasped a raw, scraping inhale that sounded like an engine coughing back to life. The heart monitor responded with scattered beeps. "Alive. Barely." Max licked Henry's face, whimpering encouragement. The deputy swerved into the emergency bay as hospital staff rushed outside with a crash team. The rear doors slammed open, cold with air flooded in. Doctors and nurses swarmed the vehicle. "He's critical. Move, move, move." Max tried to follow as they wheeled Henry out, but his hind legs buckled from the impact earlier. He stumbled into the muddy asphalt. The deputy dropped to a knee beside him. "Easy, buddy. You're hurt." Max's mind didn't care. He dragged himself forward anyway, claws scraping. He wouldn't let Henry disappear again. Not into darkness, not into sterile hallways full of strangers. He barked, a pained, demanding cry. The chief doctor looked back. Make sure the dog stays with him. He's a medical support animal tonight. Max didn't know what the words meant. He understood only the result. He was allowed continue. Hospital staff lifted him gently onto a rolling cart next to the stretcher, carrying Henry. Machines beeped frantically as Henry was rushed through sliding doors. Bursts of fluorescent lights flashing overhead like lightning's artificial cousin. Max watched every hand that touched Henry. Every tube, every needle, every battle waged on a metal table. Henry didn't stir. Doctors shouted orders. 3 milligrams, now. We're losing him. Get the crash cart. He's fibrillating again. Max whined, body trembling harder. His vision flickered from pain. The world smelled like fear, sharp and sterile. A nurse knelt beside him, laying a gentle hand on his head. You're a brave boy, she whispered. He knows you're here. Max kept his gaze locked on Henry, unblinking. The doctor called it. Last charge, clear. The shock lifted Henry's body once more. A dreadful pause. One beat. Then another. The heart monitor beeped again. Small but steady. Max let out a long, trembling breath, a sound between relief and exhaustion. The medical team moved Henry to intensive care. But just as they were about to wheel Max alongside, his own body faltered. His legs folded beneath him. Pain surged, unbearable, unavoidable. He sank to his side, panting hard. A veterinary technician, alerted by the hospital, rushed in. She scanned Max quickly, expression tightening. He's in shock, she announced. Possible fractures. Severe arthritis flare. This dog pushed himself way past his limits. Max didn't understand the diagnosis. He understood only one thing. Henry was alive, and because of that, he could rest, just for a moment. As Max's eyes closed, a soft sound reached his ears. Henry's voice. Weak, raspy, almost gone. Don't leave me. Even half conscious, Max lifted his head. He wasn't leaving. Not now. Not ever.